Welcome to Talent Talks with Recruit. Today we're joined by Mike Ames from across the pond. Mike is the founder, Scalability Coach and Consultant at Flair Business Growth Consultancy. Hope you enjoy the conversation.
Welcome to the Talent Talks with Recruit. I am Kim, one of the co-founders, and alongside me we have Morgan, our other co-founder, and we have a special guest here with us today. His name is Mike Ames, and he is the founder and scalability consultant and coach at Flair Business Growth Consultancy, and has successfully grown and sold 2 recruiting firms. He now hosts a live stream Mike Ames Recruitment show. And, we're just so excited to have you here, Mike. So welcome.
I am thrilled to be here. I'm just looking forward to this so much. So can't wait. And I'm sure it'll be over before we know it. And we'll be wondering where the time has gone. But it always does that if you're enjoying yourself, doesn't it? I think
so too.
So, Mike, if you could, would you tell us a little bit about the startup phase of a recruiting firm and how you got started and how you got on the path of even thinking about starting a recruiting firm?
Yeah, sure. I'll compress this as much as I can. I'm going to compress 34 years now into about 3 minutes. But so I started my career in computer science, took a degree in computer science, and the first few years of my life were in IT. It was called data processing in those days. And then towards the end of that period, I became freelance, which I'm not sure it translates into an American, but it means I was an independent. I just could be hired by anybody, right? And I worked for an agent, and he was a really good guy. His name was Mike Sparks, and I took 3, maybe 4 contracts through him. And then one day, in fact, I tell you, just to backtrack, I'd got a bit fed up with IT, so I saw an advert for to work for Reader's Digest in Westchester, which is upstate New York, as you obviously know. And I went for the job, and I got offered the job, and we were all set to move to America. So we got schools sorted out for the children, a whole bunch of stuff, but we couldn't sell our house. The housing market in the UK at that time was flat. We couldn't sell the house. So in the end, we couldn't go because I couldn't afford to run a house empty. I couldn't do that. So, and I was so disappointed. I was just really let down by this because we were really excited about it. And then my agent, Mike, said, look, I'm looking for a trainee recruiter if you're interested. And I was so bored. I just said, yeah, let's go for it. I had to take a 50% pay drop to do that, which took some convincing of Mrs. Ames, I have to say. But then 6 months later, we left and set our own business up. So I'd only been in recruitment for 6 months. He'd been in longer, about 8 years. And I took another 50% pay drop.
Yes, of course.
Remortgaged, right, to get some money out. So happy days they were, I can tell you. And then we ran that for about, about 18, 19 months. And then he was killed in a car accident, unfortunately, in November 7th, 1990. Terrible accident here in England. And so I took over, but I had no idea what I was doing, like no idea at all. I did up until 9 months before or whatever, I've been writing programs for a living. So, I was just massively out of my depth. So I did what I always do when I'm out of my depth, threw hours at it, just put a load of hours at it. And actually it came good. Mainly, I think, because the sympathy we got when Mike died, they really liked him. He was a very likable man. And people helped us and people supported us, and that got us through. And then I don't know whether you ever had that instance where this was about a year after that, I think, probably early 1992, where you come home on a Friday and you're wired, like really tense. I'd had one of those up and down weeks, hadn't seen the family all week, so I left early, came home late, and I'm driving home and I'm thinking, all I want is a bucket of wine and some trashy TV. That's set for the evening. And I came around the corner and I could see my children weren't in bed because the lights weren't on upstairs. So I parked the car because the last thing I wanted was the children bounding over me. I parked the car and I waited until the light came on, waited a bit longer, went in because they weren't asleep. They hadn't seen me all week. So they came bounding downstairs, terribly excited to see me. Dad's here. And so I went upstairs, read them a story and everything, came downstairs and had what can only be described as a breakdown. It was all too much. It was all too much. I built a business around me when I should have built a business that didn't need me. So everything went through me and I just couldn't do any more, couldn't take it anymore. And from that point onwards, my wife said, if you don't sort this out, I'll be sorting it out. And I knew what she meant by that, by the way. You know, she was going to leave, take the children. So I said, well, get it sorted out then. And I took a consultant, her name was Anne-Marie Hanlon, and she changed everything for me. She changed, the most important thing in a scalable business is the way in which the leaders think. And I was thinking like a recruiter that owned a business. What I should have been thinking about is being a business owner that did recruitment. Massive difference between those two. And what she helped me to do was convert from being a recruiter to being a business owner. And just to give you, I'll finish the story now. So that first business, which we sold to an American company in the end, it took us 5 years to get from naught to £5 million, which is probably about $7 million maybe. And then it took another 5 years to go from $7 million to £40 million. So the graph sort of went like that. And that happened because we changed. I changed my mentality, and then we changed the way in which we targeted clients, changed the way in which we look after clients, changed the way we reported. Everything changed because of Anne-Marie. And that was the story. And I've never looked back from that moment. But that breakdown was a seminal moment for me. That was the turning point when I cannot do this anymore. And I didn't.
At that point, did you enjoy recruiting still, or was it just?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. I'm a very obsessive person. So when I did IT, I loved IT, loved it. And then when I did recruitment, I loved it. And now I do what I do now. I love it. You can tell a passion because it's the first thing you think of in the morning and the last thing you think of at night. And you want to mix with people that are interested in it. You want to read about it and get better at it. And that was ticking all of those boxes for recruitment for me. Absolutely adored it.
Well, when you were thinking about that too, just thinking about like that big change in working with Anne-Marie and going from being the recruiter owning a business to being a business owner owning a recruiting firm, can you name distinctively like one thing that really changed? I'm sure there's multiple things obviously that you had to do in the operational side, but anything on that side. And I think this is relevant too, because advisors in our business, because you know, that's a lot of really what we focus on. They are still wanting to do everything, kind of everything runs through them, but they're not building that scalable business. So just very curious on that.
I think I can link one or two things together. Certainly we changed the way in which we won clients. Before that, we'd been chasing vacancies, the golden eggs, if you will. And what Anne-Marie said, no, you've got to chase the goose that lays the golden eggs. So we switched to a strategic business development model, and we were going for high value clients, not vacancies. So we weren't that bothered about vacancies. When they came, we wanted clients. Also, we switched across to what's called Apex Client Care. And that means it used to be called cuckoo client care because the cuckoo gets rid of all the other little birds in the nest. Bit gruesome, so we call it Apex Client Care now. But it's about getting rid of the other agencies and making ourselves the apex, the prime supplier. And that's down to massive quality. I mean, we're obsessed with quality. And that, when I say quality, I mean actual recruitment, the thing that we did to earn money. I'm obsessed with the numbers. Anne-Marie made us look at numbers, and I could tell the good deliverers from the bad deliverers, and we focused our attention on making the bad deliverers better. So it became really good at recruitment. But also it's about how you treat people. Most people class account management as essentially getting money out of people, getting work out of people so that they can make money. And client care isn't that. Client care is how you treat the people, the actual hiring managers in our case, whoever it is that gives you any work. It's how you treat them and how you make them feel, especially when there's no work. And recruiters are notorious for ignoring you if there's no work, which is a terrible thing to do. So we learned how to look after our clients, and those two things were the things that had the biggest effect on our numbers. But in order for that to happen, I learned how to delegate properly. I learned how to not blindly trust people, because that's a mistake, but I learned to put data in place to tell me what was going on. Up until that point, I'd sort of managed by proximity. You know, like I had to be with people to know what they were doing, talk to them and get to know. And we switched across to a data management approach where from the data that I got, I could pretty much tell what was happening and more importantly, what was going to happen. I built a management team, which I didn't have before. It was all me. I invested in myself as well. Anne-Marie was an investment for us as a coach, but I did other things as well to get better, to learn and improve. And so there were a number of things, but the biggest thing on the bottom line was certainly how we won clients and the type of clients that we won and how we managed them. Yeah.
How did you pick, and you said Anne-Marie?
Yeah.
How did you decide on a coach, or how do you even get to the decision I need a coach? Because I think
I'll tell you what it was.
that point.
So my breakdown was it was only a mini breakdown with respect to those people that have proper debilitating breakdowns. It wasn't that I just collapsed and I couldn't breathe properly and all the rest of it. But that was on the Friday, and on the following Monday, my remaining business partner, when I came to work, waved this leaflet, and he said, "Oh, look, we've been invited to this seminar run by the Department of Trade and Industry, which is the government's body that looks after trade." Okay, so they had a minister in charge of it, and they were running this thing at Warwick University, and you go along and there's some speakers there. Basically what they wanted you to do was go along, and then they would pay half of any consultants that you hired. But they wanted you to hire the consultants. They had a list of registered consultants, and then if you qualified, which we did, then you could get a consultant. The government paid half the money. And so that's what happened. And he said, actually, some years later, because I still see him now, we have lunch from time to time, and he said it was the biggest surprise I'd ever had with you, because up until that point, my arrogance massively outstripped my ability, for sure. And so the thought of getting help from anybody, I don't think so. I can do that.
Oh.
So he said, when I suggested that, I had no idea that you would say that you would go. Because I said, yeah, I'll do anything, man, So, yeah, if that's going to help, I'm in, because I've got to do something. And it just so happened, there's a coincidence. It happened literally on the Monday when this sort of incident had happened on the previous Friday. So, and then we just interviewed some coaches, and then we decided on Anne-Marie, best fit for us, really.
Oh, wow.
A little open-mindedness goes a long way.
I think so. I think a lot of it comes down to a recognition. There's a famous American retailer called J.C. Penney. I know it's the firm, but there was a J.C. Penney once. He said the most seminal moment in my business career was when I realized I couldn't do it all myself. And that's always stuck with me because it's so true. It's not about doing everything yourself, and we've got employees, but it's about empowering people properly, moving responsibility to people so that you are no longer responsible. Because what I was doing was delegating, but I was really sharing the tasks. So I say to you, Kim, well, could you do this? But I'm still checking up on you to make sure that you've done it and everything. So I'm kind of lending you the responsibility. It's still mine, and that's not scalable. So you have to learn to delegate properly, and then there's an art to it, and there's an element. You can learn it very easily, really, if you want to. But you're absolutely right, Morgan. It's been open-minded enough, I think, to say, I need to improve, and I'm going to improve now. How can I improve?
Mike, what is your opinion in investing in great talent? Like, why is it so important to invest in great talent if you want to grow your business?
Well, clearly, it depends what it is that you sell. If you sell a product, then you still need good people. Right. But if you're selling a service or your knowledge, your people are what you're selling, really. So the quality of the service that you offer to people is really bounded or defined by the people that you offer. I tell you an interesting thing with this, actually, is that there was an English soccer manager called Alex Ferguson, managed a big team called Manchester United. And when he came to Manchester United, he'd been manager of Aberdeen in Scotland. He came to Manchester United. He said, basically, we've got one mission now. We're going to win. I've come here for silverware. I've not come here to come second. If you don't believe in that, then you should leave. You should go, because that's what we're about now, winning. And we'll do what it takes to win. And he said, we've got some values. So value number one, it's all about the team. If you do anything which damages the team, you're out. Don't care who you are. Secondly is work rate. You have to work hard. If you don't work hard, again, I don't care how talented you are, it sends the wrong message to the team. You're out. And lastly, the reputation of this club is everything. Right? So I don't know whether you remember David Beckham. Yeah, okay. Well, he at the time was a striker for Manchester United. Very good. Top of probably the number one striker in the world at that time. He started going out with Posh Spice, Victoria Beckham, and it was bringing a lot of bad press back to Manchester United. So Alex Ferguson sacked him The number one player in the world sacked him, didn't even speak to him, just said, "You're out. That's it." And the reason I'm saying to that story is it's not just about ability, it's about getting people that share your values and buy into your mission. And I think you can't take bad people, but you can take average people and just above average people and get the most out of them if you get people that share your values and buy into your mission. And personally, when I'm hiring, I always did that. So I would interview people in the pub. I don't think you can do that now. It's a bit non-PC, but in the days you could go and see people down the pub, get a couple of beers down them and get them to talk. We wouldn't talk about a job. I'd talk about the company and then talk about them. And I was looking to see if there was a fit. And our attrition rate in that first business was less than 3% a year. So we lost. And this is recruitment in the 90s, which was like less than 3% a year. And most of those people left because I wanted them to leave. And the reason is I was very careful when I hired them to make sure that they aligned with our values and what we were trying to achieve. I didn't communicate it probably as eloquently as Sir Alex Ferguson, but nonetheless, I was quite particular. If you want to come here, this is the deal. The values are the rules and the mission is what we're going to do. If you don't like that, don't come. Seriously, because if you do come, I'm going to get rid of you anyway if you don't adhere. So don't come. The more you push the wrong people away from your business, I've learned, the more you attract the right people into it. It's the weirdest of things. And I think we were talking about recruitment off air, and I think this is where recruiters can do an awful lot with people that they recruit for, because if they fully understand the mission and the values and the culture of the company that they are recruiting for, so that they can begin the process of wondering whether this potential employee, this candidate, is a good fit or not, I think it makes the employer's job a good deal easier, because a lot of that work has been up front, which is where an EVP comes in, of course.
You know, one thing that we talk a lot about are like the two main mistakes in the interview process are shortcutting the process and the glare effect. The glare effect is essentially one trait that outweighs all the rest, right? And so maybe they have all this experience, but they're not really fitting into those values or things like that. So how did you, when you're thinking about this, did you ever come across someone that maybe was just a great recruiter, but maybe didn't align with your values and hire them? And how did that go? And what my next question would be, how did you eliminate that next time?
I did. Because you're quite right. I've never heard the glare factor, but I really like it because it was the one person I'd worked with before, but I didn't know his circumstances had changed between then and the time I hired him. And I put him into a position of authority and some power, but he couldn't do it. And I didn't go, like as you said, I skipped the process. I just went to, well, I know him. He's a great guy. He's in, really. Big mistake. I should have gone through the process. I should have ignored the glare factor of what he was in the past and have focused on what he was now, because I wouldn't have taken it. In the end, we had to let him go, obviously, as you do. So, and always, I think people hang on to people too long sometimes. In England and in Europe, it's quite difficult to get rid of people. Only in America that you can just let people go. You can't do that. So you really should hire very carefully, because if you need to get rid of someone, it's a lot of pain to go through. Because they were the wrong people. Don't have the wrong people in your business is my tip. Make sure you get those people that fit the values and share the mission, are good at what they do.
It's interesting. Like we've heard multiple times in our industry, and you've probably heard this too, Mike, is slow to hire, quick to fire. I don't know if the quick to fire is really applicable to the UK, but you really want to make sure it is the right fit. And I think one of the challenges that, you know, we come across as recruiting specifically for the financial services industry is people are impatient, which I'm sure is just anywhere, right? They're impatient. They're like, I want people, or they take the easiest route where it's, I knew this person or I was referred to this person, we're in, I can just move on. And it's so, when we're thinking about this and then we tell this to a client, we're like, the amount of money that you are wasting on the wrong hire is astronomical
Yes, yeah.
versus waiting to have the right hire even 30 days later. So just any addition to that, what would you say?
I think that's really interesting, actually, Kim, because I think you're right. I think that was my case. I just rushed the hire through. He came up, he was available. I thought, I can't lose him, I'll take him, which was a mistake, really. I think there's a couple of things here. One sounds a little harsh, but I think it's the best for everybody. Whilst I said it's a good idea to hire people into your business to come and work for you, share your values and buy into your mission, and really appreciate the culture that you've created, I think the same applies when dealing with clients. I think you have to work with clients that share your values and see the world the way that you see it.
100%.
Because if you don't, ultimately it'll bite you in the ass, really.
Right.
Ultimately you'll lose money somewhere, something bad will happen, and you'll have to sort things out.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can find people that share that, and we advise people now that when you approach a potential client, you say, haven't come, and this is strategic BD, this is the essence of strategic BD, haven't come to get a vacancy from you, or if you were talking for financial advisors or whatever, I've not come to do business with you. What I want to know is whether our flavor of recruitment meets your tastes. And I want to explain to you exactly how we do things. I want to lay it all out, because if you like it, I can prove everything I say, everything. So if you like what you see, we'll wait 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years. I don't care. We'll wait, because we now know that the way which you like to work is the way that we want to work. If that's not the case, we should put our hands up and be honest and say, well, look, let's go our separate ways. Good luck, keep being fabulous, but I think our future lies in different places. And I think that's a much more mature approach, rather than just trying to get a transaction across the line, because ultimately that's not necessarily going to give you the clients that you want. So I think that's very true, actually, what you said.
And it's hard when you're first starting out. I mean, like, you're first starting out and you're like, I need business. I want business, right? I need this to go. But I think Kim and I have both experienced, like, there's just certain people we don't align with the way that they recruit financial advisors. And a good portion of the people that do recruit advisors maybe don't do it the right way, right? We're just looking to hire quantity versus quality. And Kim and I and recruits about the quality, and it's just really digging into that client in that first meeting, that sales meeting, of how many people do you want to hire? Well, how many leaders do you have per each hire? And, like, without asking, do you believe in quantity or quality? Because they're all going to say both. And we're like, well, that doesn't really exist.
Doesn't figure, does it?
Yeah. But it does help.
It's interesting to say that, because I think some of it comes down to us. It's our fault to a certain degree, because without being pompous, I think sometimes, or supercilious, I think it's important to educate clients, because they don't know many of them. Their job is to do the thing that they do.
Yeah.
Recruitment is something that's foisted upon them, really. And their view, well, the more agencies I put on the job, the better job I'll do. Well, no, that's not going to happen, for starters. If we go contingent, that's going to be best. Well, no, that isn't going to be best for you. And I can prove all of this. The best thing to do is to find somebody that you can work with and give them some exclusivity, so that they can search much wider and they can qualify much deeper, and they can manage the process with you so it's under control. That's the best way to do it. I think people don't see that, and it's our fault as an industry, I think, because we've propagated this. Oh, look, just give us a deal, man. Give us a vacancy and I'll have some CVs to you.
Right.
No, that's not how it works. That's not the deal at all. But you need people who either already know that, because they've seen what happens if you don't do that. As you said, the cost of bad hires, let alone the stress levels of dealing with like 10 agencies and CVs coming all over the place and duplicates and people falling out with each other. It's a nightmare, really. No, you tell me exactly what you want. I'll then find people and properly qualify them. And I don't just mean, are they suitable? Are they also serious about the role?
Right.
Because you need both. It's not just, anyone can get suitable people, but are you suitable and serious? And I'll present those people to you. Warts and all, I'll give you a 3-dimensional view of them. You choose the ones you want to see, and then I'll manage that process for you. That's the deal, really. Well, to a lot of people, it's now get some CVs in and, we'll sort that out, some profiles or whatever you would, resumes, I think you call them in the States. Get some resumes on the desk and no, champ, no, that's not really how it works. But it's our fault, because we haven't educated people, I think.
Right.
Well, I think there's just also a lot of recruiting companies out there that will also say, oh yeah, we can do it. We can do it for, this sort of fee. And, you always hear this, but you get what you pay for. Right. And so, if you do want to be contingent or do some of those things, you're going to get a certain type of candidate usually. But if you are a little bit more retained, it's more of a partnership than anything else. And that's what, that's how we really view ourselves too. We want to be a recruiting partner. We do not just want to be, a resume sending, and quite frankly, we wouldn't do that anyway. But, it really does come with that partnership mindset too.
I think it does. We always told people that we were a professional service provider. We just happen to do recruitment, but we are a professional service provider, like a lawyer or an accountant, attorney, I think you would say. It's the same thing, that we're not regulated, fair enough, but but nonetheless, we regulate ourselves. We're obsessed with quality and excellence. We follow procedures. We're predictable. We know what we're doing. We train people. We keep people. We understand how this whole thing works. And we're not in for a quick buck. That's not the deal. If that's what you want, you should go down the road, because there'll be somebody that can work like that for you. Seriously. And this comes down to another aspect of this way of working, though, I would suggest, is that having a strong business development engine that can put you in front of a lot more prospects means you can be a lot more choosy. If you don't have many options, you kind of have to take, you've got to eat, haven't you? So you kind of have to take what you can get, and everyone's done that. It's like, I know that this work is going to be a pain, but I've got nothing else, so I'll just do it then. But actually, by ramping up the business development function so that it's bringing in more and more potential clients of the sort that you want, then you can be a little more choosy. And if you get a client that is a good client and then becomes a bad client, which happens sometimes, you can, with respect, let them go. You go over there, because that's not the direction I'm moving in. So I need to go in this direction. We go our separate ways. But you can't do that if you don't have a really strong BD engine, because you don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
And it's a problem for all industries, not just recruitment. Everybody, I think that is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Mike, we've worked with you for a while now, and it has been an absolute pleasure. So, and you've given us such great value. But very often we hear you talk about this EVP, right? And you did mention it earlier. For our listeners who may not know, can you tell us more about the EVP, what it is?
Yeah, I can. It's called employee value proposition. It's essentially, think of it as the product that you're offering potential employees. So it's not a product you're selling to clients. It's a product that you're selling to potential employees. If you come here, this is what we give you. Now, interestingly, we did some surveys on this, and in the UK, and I don't think it's massively different in Europe or maybe North America, but 75% of the candidates that we polled, just over 75%, said that they were as interested or more interested in the company and its culture than they were the job, the actual role itself. And if you think about it, this is mainly Gen Z to millennials, right? So, but if you think about it, it makes perfect sense, because if you take a great job in a bad company, that's not going to work out well. Right. If you take a job that's not ideal in a good company, then there's a chance you can move into a better job. And it makes perfect sense to me to do that way. And yet, recruiters and employers don't focus on the EVP. I'm going to explain what's in the EVP in a second. They don't explain the good bits of the company. Yeah, it's like, well, we'll talk about the role in a minute, but let me tell you, if you come and join us, this is what you get. And no one really does that so well. I know we've talked about it before, and you do it, but the ability when you work with a client for the first time to really understand why someone should come and work for you, what's the really good bit about coming to work here, and asking the right questions, because then you can talk to candidates about it. And clearly, if the data is to be believed, they want to know, they're interested. And what that can give you is you can get more of those people who are passive. They're not looking for a role, but they're open. If you actually do manage to get to speak to them, and part of that is to big up the company. It's like, yeah, well, come over with this company. Let me tell you about the company first, and I'll tell you about the role in a second. And like, you've already got them fired up before you even talk about the role. So I think it's useful for that. I think also it reduces the number of counteroffer acceptances. So you can counteroffer a job, because I could offer you some promotion or more money or something. But you can't counter offer a company. The company is what it is. It's not going to change. So if you don't like the company, they can promise you what they like, but it's not going to change. Now, I accept if the counter offer is $20,000 more, I'd probably take it, quite frankly, and move in 6 months' time. I probably would. But if it's there or thereabouts, and once I took a job, my last permanent job before I went freelance, for less money because I wanted to go to this particular company. Right, my wife was not impressed about that either, as it turned out. But this EVP is just this way of being able to encompass the best bits about your business, the bits that people are interested in, so that if people have got a question about something, you can answer it in a very consistent and compelling way. That's what an EVP is. So it's made up of 2 bits, really, the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. So the must-haves, you've got to be able to define the culture. So the values, the mission, the goals, the projects that are happening right now, the movement in the business, where is it going? What's it trying to achieve? People are interested in that. Certainly what the policies are on remuneration. So what's the policy? The actual remuneration is attached to the job. So you get paid this much and you get this much bonus, or you get share options or whatever it is. So what's the policy on it? What are the rewards and perks you bring in to them? You might get medical health insurance or whatever it brings in. So these are the things that you have. Also, people are interested in career and personal development. So in other words, what's my path from where I am now to move forward? What can I do? And also, what support do you give me? What training and coaching and mentoring do you give me? What is the policy, the company's policy on that? And then the last thing in the must-haves is management, right? So how will you be managed? Do you have to work from home? Can you work in the office? How will I be managed? Well, is it heavily KPI driven? Is it management by exception? What is it? How will you manage me? And how will you communicate with me to keep me in the loop of things? Now, underneath that, there's some nice to haves, like your EDI policy, quality, diversity, inclusion policy. What's the policy on that? Some people are very keen to know. CSR, corporate social responsibility. How do you give back with your charities or whatever you support? And lastly, increasingly important now, what's your policy on socialization? Because we all work from home now, so you have to arrange social events a lot more than you did in the past, when you could say, oh, it's 5 o'clock, anybody fancy a quick pint around the pub before we go home? Can't do that now. Things have got to be arranged. So what's the policy on that? How do you bring people together? So that's the essence of it. There's a bit more to it than that, but those 7 things are the essence of an EVP. And as a recruiter, it's important to understand what they are. As an employer, it's important to be able to articulate those. And I'll tell you, I don't know whether this is just a UK site. You might be able to look on the UK site for Michael Page. But if you look on their website, I'm told, actually, I'm not sure this is libelous, but I'm told that what they put on there is perfect. It actually spells out just what an EVP should look like. It's like they've been on one of my courses, quite frankly. They haven't. They haven't, right? But I was told by somebody who actually worked for them that they don't do any of that. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I can't say. Please don't sue me, Michael Page. But it just lays it out. It's like, yeah, I totally get it. All the questions I'm asking myself are here. And as we know, 87% of millennials and Gen Z will check you out online.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Before they're even prepared to go for the interview. So if they don't find what they're looking for, that's going to dent their eagerness to go forward for the job. So your Join Us page should be a reflection of the EVP entirely, so people can answer those questions. That's the kind of company I want to go and work for, man. Yeah, you can put me forward for that. So I think EVP is very big in the UK now. It's starting to take off in Europe, and I think it'll be coming to the United States, if it's not here already, anytime soon, because it's such an important part of the recruitment process.
And we've shared some of this philosophy with, some of our clients and in webinars, but it's just so nice to hear from you on that side. And, one thing too, Mike, that is, we do ask when we're thinking about the EVP, and, one of the main questions could be, hey, how are you different from others? Or what are you doing? Right. A common answer is almost every time where it says our culture is different. So,
okay, so
right. So what would you do with that?
The definition of culture really is, first of all, the mission. What are you aiming to do here? What is the point of it all? What's the thing that you're trying to achieve in this business? Not just make money for shareholders, which of course it is, and we know that, of course it is. But how are you going to do that? How are you going to make money for shareholders? You're going to achieve something. Well, what is that something? I think values are important. Values are much more important inside a business as they are outside, because clients don't really care about your values, all due respect, but employees do. So what are those values, and how do you measure them, and how do you reward people that stick to them? They're just rules, right? So integrity could be one of them. Well, fine. What does that mean? What do you mean when you say integrity? What do you mean by that? Give me some examples underneath so I can get it. I understand what it means.
Yeah.
And how do you promote those and train people in them and select on that basis? And when we work with a lot of recruitment companies, and many of them, we build for them a little online survey that they can send out to a client after they've done a piece of work. And one of those things is, these are our values. Did we stick to them? So we're taking them seriously, because if we didn't stick to them, you better tell us, because we're going to fix that, right? So this is all about culture. Elements of how you manage the culture as well. I mean, can you work from home? Do you need to be in the office? Are you KPI driven? Is it project driven? Is it output driven or activity driven? All of these things define the culture. And then you bring in things like your EDI policy and your CSR policy and your socialization. That's the culture. So you need to define it in those micro terms, not just we've got a great culture, because that really doesn't do anything to anybody.
No.
It's not a definition. It's those things that I just pointed out to you. That defines the culture. Your EVP is your culture, really.
Mike, what is one thing that you would like to share with our audience that they can't find on Google about you?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I got a poem on the BBC when I was 8 years old. When I was at school, we all had to send a poem in. There was a competition. The teacher said, "Oh, we'll enter this." And they picked mine and they read it out on the BBC radio. That was, you won't find that anywhere. And my mother, right, I didn't know this until after she died. My mother had it embroidered. It was quite a short poem about snow in the wintertime. And she had it embroidered on like a piece of cloth thing. And I found it, and it's now in my games room here. It's over the way there. I found it.
Nice.
Michael Ames, 8 years old, 1960.
That's so sweet. Aw. Now, do you write poetry otherwise, or was that just
No, I don't. It was the thing. I don't really like poetry very much. I like literature a lot.
Okay.
Literature particularly, but some American literature too. But and I like art a lot. But I did it because everyone in the class had to do it, and so I wrote the poem. But that's the only thing I think that you could see about me that you can't find on Google.
That's wonderful.
Surprising, unique thing, right?
Well, it didn't spark off a great career of poetry, is all I can say. But,
you got to have the passion around it, right?
I did get a pen off the headmaster, a pen and a chocolate bar. So, it wasn't a complete waste of my time.
Oh, wonderful. Well, this has just been so valuable to have you, here with us today, Mike, and, going over all the success that you've had, what you've learned along the way, and then how can, people really apply that to their business. I think that our listeners will definitely have a lot of really great takeaways. So we really appreciate your time. Is there any last words or piece of advice that you'd like to give to our listeners?
Thank you.
Hiring or having good people?
I think the only thing that I would say really is, well, two things: the J.C. Penney advice. You can't do it all yourself. You've got to build a team of the right people and engage with them and empower them in the right way. And the other thing is, if you own a business, you have to have a business owner mentality. You have to change, which means a lot longer viewpoint into the future, to invest more, to not be so transactional. Those are the kind of things which are exactly opposite to what a good recruiter has in terms of mentality. Because when you change your mentality to be a business owner, then I think you're leaving space, as Morgan said, openness to real change in your business. And that's when it'll happen.
Great. Well, thanks, Mike. And until next time, thanks, everyone.